Welcome to this episode 12 of Cast It to the King. My name is Joshua Mickle. This is Aaron Alston, and we have the MJ Take himself from Sports Fan Entertainment. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We're doing great.
Good, man. It's glad to have you on.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right. So how's your day going on, Aaron?
Man, it's good. Been a good chill Friday. Got to knock out a couple work projects, couple school projects, but I'm glad to be here right now to talk about some fun stuff.
Yes, can't wait to get into this. And as we start off this topic, once again, this show is a non-sponsored show. So, I don't know why I just said that. So, no shameless plug here. So, no shameless plug today. So, first topic we're going to dive into here, gentlemen. We have all seen Ant-Man 3, Ant-Man and The Wasp, Quantumania. And we have our thoughts and opinions on it. I would say generally it's not a bad movie, but it definitely has its flaws for sure. So the topic we're going to be going to dive in here today, fellas, is that going into coming out of Ant-Man 3, is the MCU right now on shaky ground? It's not. The question is it in trouble? Is it doomed? Is the sky falling? Or whatever superlative you want to dive into that. The question is it on shaky ground? The foundation is starting to rot a bit. And I'll start with you, MJ.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially coming after Phase 4, the opinions on the MC have been a little bit low, which I honestly thought was a bit unfair. I thought people were, kind of romanticizing how quote-unquote good even Phase 1 was. I mean, Iron Man started off with a great start there. If you want to include the Incredible Hulk, it was only okay. Captain America, the first Avenger, okay. Thor was okay. But you had the bang in the Avengers, and that's what really people remember from Phase 1. But to start a new saga, I expected Phase 4 to be, a little lackluster, just finding its footing, introducing the Eternals, introducing some new characters, coming off of the rails of Endgame. So I was fine with Phase 4. It wasn't like, it didn't have that bookend that probably people wanted, like an Avengers type film to really solidify it. Although No Way Home was fantastic. I think people really enjoyed No Way Home. It didn't have that fantastic bookend, but I was fine coming off of Phase 4. But to start Phase 5, people definitely needed a jolt. And Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was supposed to provide that. We've already been hearing the billing that Jonathan Majors, his Kang the Conqueror, is supposed to be the next big bad of the MCU. We saw him tease as He Who Remains at the end of Loki Season 1. And this was supposed to be the true launch point. And while he, in my opinion, still did a good job, the fact that the movie overall was, mediocre to a lot of people, that's why I can say at this point in the MCU, I'll say it's on shaky ground. Now, it's not, completely dead. It's nothing that they can't recover from. But I do have concerns with the plans that they have moving forward and whether or not things are going to coalesce how they would like.
All right. What do you think, Aaron?
I think the MCU is definitely on shaky ground. I think for this to be one of the first movies that we're seeing Kang in, I just was expecting something stronger. And then even just like me, just being a movie critic, I didn't like the way that the movie was written. I didn't like the flow of the movie. I didn't like the pacing. And I'm gonna just be honest, to me, it was hard to watch, kind of. So with that in mind, and this, kind of kicking off and sending us into kind of a new place, seeing a new villain introduced. Rather if you haven't seen Loki or whatever, but I just think that this was not the best start or the start that they needed to have to launch this phase, and because of that, I think it's on really shaky ground. And I'm a little bit worried about how this phase is going to play out. I am, Josh.
In terms of the question, is it on shaky ground? The answer is yes. It is on shaky ground. Now, next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So it could quickly be remedied to, okay, we're back on the train, and Secret Invasion may come out and it's fantastic, and then you got 2 hits in a row, and then Loki after that, and then I think it's the Marvels this year that comes out in November, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's the next movie after Guardians. Maybe that's 3 hits in a row. You got 4 hits in a row by then, and then the year 2023 is salvaged. It's on shaky ground because not only do you have a lackluster Ant-Man movie, also in that Jonathan Majors is fantastic. Yeah. I have not seen Creed 3, but I heard he's also fantastic in that movie as well. So I plan on seeing Creed 3 pretty soon. And again, Jonathan Major, like he's the toast of the town in Hollywood these days. Yeah. It seems like he's in every other movie. he's in that he's in that Korean warplane movie that Paramount, that Sony put out. He's in Ant-Man. He's in He Who Remains. He's now in Creed. I mean, this guy's he's gonna be Loki season 2. So
right, I'm wondering how he has time to film all this. Actually, he's like all over the place.
I know he's been grinding for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So it is on shaky ground. Part of that, what you alluded to, MJ, is that Phase 4 was a little bit lackluster. It's coming off of, kind of had to hit the reset button for Phase 4 because you're coming off of that high that was Avengers Endgame, and then you had the little cake topper that was Far From Home. And then you might as well include No Way Home as part of Phase 3 because that leads directly into No Way Home. The Way Far From Home and No Way Home are so closely connected to each other. You might as well consider No Way Home a Phase 3 movie in that sense. In that, if you actually do that, like your big hits from Phase 4 are Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Even though I have my issues with that movie, there's honestly nothing. Box office wise, these films have been doing good, especially coming out of the pandemic of folks getting back to the theaters. It's just a matter of there's not that big pop that says I have to go out to see this. This is such a great movie as was the previous films combined.
Yeah, and also ultimately, like you get a Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I mean, that was a movie that you saw the trailers. It looked epic. It looked like, okay, this is a movie that I have to go out and see it, and ultimately making over $900 million. Mm-hmm. But a lot of us left that movie being like, well, did I really need to see this? Because, seeing alternate versions of some of these characters was cool. But then at the end of the day, it was like, well, what really happened here? Like, Wanda dies in the film. We know she's coming back. So there's also a lack of consequence. There's a lack of, importance when it comes to this phase. When you're introducing the multiverse, or you're introducing the fact that all of these characters are coming back, it really loses a lot of the allure of having to see these movies. I feel like their need to see events, and they're definitely, missing on that point for sure.
So I'll just dive into this a little bit deeper. For going into the rest of Phase 5 and then ultimately Phase 6 and then Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, what is on your bucket list that you hope they check the boxes off that they do at least correctly? I'll start with you, Aaron, on that.
Well, I want to just really see Kang really just be a villain that actually like strikes a little bit of fear. I just know for me at least, I didn't really feel like Thanos was a threat until we got to Endgame. After watching Ant-Man 3, I still didn't feel like Kang is really that big of a guy to look out for. So I'm still waiting.
Really?
Really, it was just like, to me, it's like, I just felt I was waiting for him to do something big. And he never did anything big in that movie. Yeah. So I'm waiting to see Kang and the other Kangs and the Council of Kangs really just wreak havoc on multiple universes. And I'm hoping that they can tie together all the universes together. Because I'm going to just be real with you. It's almost, just for me at least, it almost feels like there's no weight in the game. It's hard for me to relate to all the different universes. So I'm hoping that there's some tie-in, or at least the audience can get bought into these different universes. And then that way, it's like, okay, Kang has some influence in the timeline of everything that's happening. At least for me, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping the Council of Kangs, hoping that Kang is like, just gets a little bit, he just goes to a different level than Thanos does. Because that's what I've been waiting on.
All right. You, MJ?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And yeah, I saw some people arguing that, well, this movie didn't necessarily do so well box office wise because Thanos had been quote unquote built up more than Kang. And I disagree with that to a little bit because Thanos, okay, little post-credit scene there, little scene in Guardians. And we knew that he sent Loki, and we knew that he sent, I can't remember the villain from Guardians, but Ronan.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until Infinity War that Thanos, boom, hit, and then right off the scene, first scene, he's wreaking havoc. And then it's like, oh, okay, look at what's going on here. And then he just went off for the whole movie. So definitely see, well, Kang, being much more of a formidable force. And without a doubt, there's, to me, no excuse that, he did not kill any of the Ant family. That easily should have been done. Yeah. Easily should have been done. And at the very least, and I assume even this version of Kang still exists, and maybe this is ultimately the Kang the Conqueror that's going to be the ultimate Kang, if you will. I'm sure he still exists in some format. But just having some sort of consequence at the end of this. And I read this. I'm not sure if this is true. I read and I was watching the scene expecting to see this 100%. I can't believe they didn't do this. Apparently they cut this out. I don't know if this is true. At the end, when the Ant family is having dinner, apparently Kang was going to be, and the Scott Lang was going to see a version of Kang at the restaurant. And then it was going to cut out. That would have been like, oh, snap. Like, you still see he's still here. Like, he's still really, pulling the strings. And they cut it out, apparently. Again, no, that's unconfirmed. So just something to really say that at the end of the day, he won this movie.
That would be the ultimate mind screw of an ending. It almost similar to when Doctor Strange got his third eye, of how abrupt of an ending that was, and then roll the credits. That would have been that kind of a mind screw of an ending for me. But I heard, and again, this is unconfirmed, but it's, again, what we got as fanboys, we're just going off of rumors these days. So the plan was to have Scott stuck in a quantum realm again, and Kang gets out. And then they cut that a month before the movie comes out. That's what I thought ultimately was going to happen. And then you see Kang go full on Creed 3 mode on Scott Lang, punching him and serving him up for dinner. I'm like it's hard to watch as you root for these heroes, but what's made these superhero movies in Marvel so impactful and great is that there is that third or ish movie in these franchises that it impacts the hero in a negative way. Like in Iron Man 3, he loses his suits, he loses his arc reactor. In Captain America 3, he loses his shield, and he's on the run from the government. In Spider-Man No Way Home, no one knows who Peter Parker is anymore. He loses his aunt, and he loses his friends, essentially. So there was no loss that I was expecting from Ant-Man 3. So that's what left me underwhelmed with Ant-Man Quantumania. For my bucket list of what I want Secret Wars to happen, I'm skipping Kang Dynasty. So for what I want for Kang Dynasty, for sure, we have the fellow that directed Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings directed the movie. But we got the writer that wrote this movie writing that movie. So the bucket list I want to hear within the next 2 years is that another writer has been brought in. At least another writer has been brought in to freshen up the script. If the headline is that, I'd be like, okay, whew, all right. I can go in with a fresh take of, okay, this might be good. That's my only thing with Kang Dynasty, because God knows what the lineup is going to be for whoever these Avengers are. It seems like Doctor Strange and Captain Marvel are going to be the leaders per se. But in terms of who's going to be the one that the audience follows, who's the spirit of the MCU, it's clearly Spider-Man. It's clearly Spider-Man, and that's one of the things I attribute to that Sony has stuck with Marvel for this long, because they realized that when they got in with the deal with Disney and Marvel initially, it was to help prop Spider-Man. Now that he has been propped to a point where he is the face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to that point, it's you can't kill him off, even though they did in Infinity War. You can't kill him off. You can probably introduce Miles Morales in a future Disney Plus show or Amazon series these days, or they just stick with that with the Miles Morales with the Into the Spider-Verse franchise going forward. But Spider-Man has to be the spirit and soul going forward with the MCU. In Secret Wars, as a Spider-Man fan, you gotta introduce the black costume. That has to be, I don't want to say pivotal, but they are certainly teasing it to where it has to be that. And I told Zach Van Blaricom on our last episode is that there is an old video you can find online of Kevin Feige when he was executive producing Spider-Man 3 that came out in 2007, that he was going in depth and so excited talking about where this black costume came from, the Secret Wars battle world. He was going into detail, you're thinking, oh, we're going to get this in Spider-Man 3. And then literally the next scene later, it's another producer saying, that happened in the comics, so we can't really do that. So here's how we're doing it for Spider-Man 3. So, and especially at the end of No Way Home, they teased the symbiotes out there now in the MCU that's been left behind. So in terms of bucket list, Like it's gonna be interesting for sure, because like honestly, when we get later on to this Tennessee Titans topic, this could go anywhere. It can go from, okay, they're getting their legs back underneath them and they're doing great, and we can't wait to go into Avengers and then Kang Dynasty and then Secret Wars and then everything else after that. Maybe get another Spider-Man movie before the Avengers movies. Who knows? But yeah, it's similar to the Titans. We don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know. We don't have that track record that we have phases 1, 2, and 3, where it's, okay, we expect this movie to be good. Oh, this was surprisingly good. This was awesome. This was good. This was a nice after. This movie was fantastic. Now it's, okay, good. Maybe at least phase 4 was meh per se, and phase 5 is like really? Like really? So, the last thing I will throw out there that I sent you to for this topic, should this go the wrong route of like mediocrity or bad? I mean, I shouldn't say bad, because they're never going to be bad. If it's mediocrity, subpar, that's going forward into 2025, how realistic is it an opportunity for James Gunn and now DC Studios to now take supplant Marvel in the throne room of, we are the high quality ones here, fans, and we have the better movies. Come see our movies. And I'll start with you, MJ, on that.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot now. I would also say it's not going to happen probably anytime soon. Like, it wouldn't happen in 2025, 2026. Yeah. But if they can start the universe off strong, it's certainly possible. The problem is, I mean, at this point, how much have they tarnished the Superman brand? I mean, how many people are going to be excited to go see another Superman movie? I don't even know. I don't know if it's going to make more money than Man of Steel did, making $700 million. I honestly, right now, don't think so. It's going to depend on the casting. But if it's strong, then it could be a great launch point for other products and moving forward. Also, now that they're doing they're having their main slate as well as Elseworld stories, I think it's an interesting choice. I think you kind of have to, though, considering the success of the Batman, which was, financially very well and also very strong as a movie in and of itself. You have to continue that. Same with Joker. You have to. But, with that and then the main slate, it's going to be interesting. I feel like they're going to end up being equal. I really feel as if the MCU is going to end up falling off a little bit. I feel like their major events like a Secret Wars or Kang Dynasty are still going to do very well. Mm-hmm. But I feel like their individual character movies, outside their Spider-Man movies, I feel like their Doctor Strange, Thor's, Shang-Chi's are going to be equivalent now to DC films moving forward. I don't know if DC, if they can get Batman and Superman to be a Spider-Man level in terms of MCU making potentially a $2 billion movie. I'm not sure about that yet, depending, again, on the casting choices they make for their Batman and Superman. But those are still really strong intellectual properties. Everyone knows who Batman and Superman is. And if you're able to redo it, if you're able to do it well, things can launch off very quickly. Batman Begins did not make that much money, but they did it right. People saw it a year or two after on cable, on HBO, whatever. And then they casted Heath Ledger, and then you saw the trailers, and tragically he passed away, but that also grew excitement. And then everyone went to go see The Dark Knight, and then boom, that was the number one superhero movie ever. And DC was on top. Just like that. So something like that could easily happen again. And that was right off the heels of, the Spider-Man trilogy ending. And at that point, Sony was on top of their Spider-Man property. So things can change, if you're able to really develop and produce good content.
And especially Batman Begins was coming off of what Batman movie? Batman and Robin. So you can only go nowhere. The only place you can go is up after coming off of that movie. So what do you think, Aaron? I
was just going to say, I think DCU, I'm kind of similar with MJ. The DCU is doing a great job of attracting casuals. People who maybe don't, necessarily dive into some of the storylines and maybe didn't grow up on the comics and don't really know everything that's going on, but they do such a great job of building hype for these name brand characters. Everybody went to go see the Batman. And I think when DC right now, because they're doing such a great job at it, just attracting casual fans, that when they do actually get their universe built out, it's going to be some people who just jump on the bandwagon. Right now, I think the only thing that the MCU has on DC is that, it's just, there's been so much build up to it. There's been such a big storyline, and you kind of had to jump on. The DC universe is going to just kind of keep on releasing some of these one-off movies, I think, which is going to keep people just somewhat attracted to it. But then when they actually build out this universe, I think that's going to be the switch. And I think the way that they're going right now with how the MCU's falling off and how the DCU has all these casuals, and once these casuals get bought in, it's going to be easy to kind of get the diehard people back on the ship. So I just think that real soon, I think it's going to be sooner than we think, actually. I think if this phase for MCU falls off, people are going to just be looking for the next best thing, which right now it looks like the DC universe.
The only thing the DC universe does not have going its way is that Black Adam was bad. Black Adam was bad because you take away Black Adam, what is DC working with since 2021? Zack Snyder's Justice League, great. The Suicide Squad with James Gunn and Peter Safran, who are now running DC Studios, awesome. Now you're coming up with Shazam 2. The first one was really good in my opinion. Then you got The Flash, which is the ultimate reset, retelling of Flashpoint for their films essentially, and then you have Blue Beetle, and then Aquaman, which even though it's coming out after The Flash, I tend to believe that these movies are going to be taking place in the events before Flash happens, even though like in real time in real world that the release dates are after The Flash. So that's my opinion, especially with the rumors that Aquaman's now going to probably be Lobo after Aquaman 2. Mm-hmm. So that makes no sense if Aquaman 2 is after Flashpoint and someone else is playing Aquaman. That makes no sense.
It was a lot of hype about the Flash during the Super Bowl commercial.
They were great.
Yeah, the Super Bowl commercial was real strategic. And I'm just saying, I think they know how many people watch the Super Bowl, and I think they're attracting casual people, just to stay interested, to just know that we're still working on stuff. And I'm telling you, when they get casuals and casuals get bought in, it's going to be easy to get the people that are really bought in and grew up on this kind of stuff back into the universe.
So so you got the reason I say Black Adam was like the bad apple is because Marvel releasing subpar, good, subpar. They're putting out too much content to where DC is like, okay, here's a little bit. Here's what you think. Zack Snyder's Justice League. Oh, that's great. Here's the Suicide Squad, rated R, raunchy, 80s, 90s, hardcore, bloody violence movie. That was great. Versus we got Black Widow, Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was great. We have a whole bunch of Marvel shows and a whole bunch of Marvel movies, basically pretty much oversaturating the market per se, to where it's like, oh, okay, Marvel, you've done Infinity War, Endgame. We still trust you. We still trust you. Let's see what the other guy DC's doing. It's like, oh, we're doing great. If not for Black Adam being bad script. I love the fight scenes. I don't care what anyone says to me. I love the fight scenes, and I forget the actor's name, Noah, that plays Adam Smasher, I believe his name is. I forget his name, but
Noah Centineo, I think is the name.
Yeah, he's the Mark Ruffalo, the unaffiliated son of Mark Ruffalo, essentially. So I actually fell in love with him with a Netflix show that me and my wife watched called The Fosters. And he's one of the many kids that with this couple, these two ladies couple that essentially it's a foster home essentially, and Noah was part of that foster group, and I loved him in that show. He did the acting that he did, and storyline of having his father come in. He was great. So when he was cast as Black Adam, I'm like, okay, great. He's going to get his chops on the big screen and show everyone what he can do. And he was great. He was so great for the lines he was given. So, Rock, sorry, buddy. You can't be Black Adam going forward. I'm sorry. As much as you want Henry Cavill, and as much as most of us want Henry Cavill to go on as Man of Steel, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. And then, it's to MJ's point. 2025 is when we're going to get this new slate of new DC shows and DC movies. And could they dethrone? Not 2025 to MJ's point, because also in 2025, assume they hold the dates, is when Kane Dynasty comes out that year in 2025. They pushed off Secret Wars to 2026. I would say bring up this conversation in 2026, 2027 to where DC has enough of a sample size. And then Marvel's coming off of you would think is their high of Avenger films, then we might have something to talk about. But until then, it's all just speculation. So, any last words, MJ?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. And again, it's very important that they nail those, the King Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. So if they do not nail those, going into the next saga, I don't know what the saga is going to be. But I mean, I can see the Secret Wars, it's involving all the characters that it does. And depending how they're going to set the storyline up, because they're taking some liberties already. If they don't do a good job there and if they have strong Batman, Superman movies at that point, yeah, by 2027, the DC could be on top.
Yeah. If they screw up Secret, they could do Secret. We have so many versions of Secret Wars. Like you would think, there's no wrong you can do. There's the classic story arc you could do with Beyonder. There's the recent one that came out with Doctor Doom. I was just mentioning with MJ before we started, the '90s Spider-Man cartoon did a Secret Wars storyline with the Beyonder centered around Spider-Man and whatnot. So there's ways you can make this work. It's just a matter of if they fall flat on their face and screw this up. I'm a Spider-Man man first, Marvel fan second. If they screw this up with Spider-Man, I'm gonna go cry off in a corner somewhere and just contemplate like my Spider-Man fandom. But I mean, I'll still have No Way Home in my back pocket as probably one of the best theater experiences I've had in my life. So, growing up with those movies. All right, so fellas, next topic, and this might be a doozy for you, MJ. You are a Laker fan, so we are definitely going to be talking about this. The NBA Western Conference standings is close to ridiculous. The difference between the second seed and the eighth seed is by 5 games, essentially. And so we're going to take a stab at this is on 2 fronts. You're going to try to defend your Lakers if you still can, and we're going to try to talk about our Grizzlies, and we're going to try to meet in the middle for a bit here. So what do we think is ultimately going to end up happening with the Western Conference? And I'll start with you, Aaron, and I'll shoot over to you, MJ.
Well, I think Utah's going to lock up that one spot. Not Utah, Denver. My bad.
Oh,
Denver.
Lord.
Yeah, I was saying I'm tripping. I'm still thinking about the All-Star game.
That was a
Denver,
few years ago.
Yeah.
That was a few years ago.
Denver's got that one spot. Then I think Memphis is going to be in that 2 spot. I just even though it's still so tight, I just don't think anybody's going to be able to catch Memphis and take that 2 spot from them. I think Sacramento is going to end up dropping from that 3. Sacramento, I think they'll end up dropping. And then I think those spots, really, I think the 5 through all the way down to probably 12 is going to be the wild, wild west for real. Because, I mean, it's just so tight. A lot of those teams that are in that range are really inconsistent as well. I mean, everybody's beating everybody when it comes to those kind of middle ground teams. And it's a lot of those teams just can't stay healthy. And I just think that the Grizzlies right now, I think we're going through our injury bug right now. I think once we get Steven Adams back.
That's the one missing piece.
I would say once we get Steven Adams back, I think that's only going to help solidify our 2 spot. But I think it's going to be once we get to those last 2 weeks of the season, I think it's going to be some old school basketball being played and everybody's going to be pulling out all the stops. I think it's going to get real messy those last 2 weeks. And I think the Grizzlies are going to be saying, you know what? First round, we're going to have home court advantage, and if we can get to the second round, we'll have home court advantage. And I think Denver's built such up a big lead because they're like, I think 4 or 5 games ahead.
Memphis
right
still got 2 games left against them. So they play tonight.
Yeah, they play tonight. Yeah.
By the time this episode comes out on Monday, we don't know what the results of that can be.
Right. But I think Denver, man, it's something about going up to Denver. Denver's really good at home. I think it's playing in that altitude. It gets a lot of the guys. But I think Denver's probably going to end up locking up that 1. I think Memphis is going to end up locking up that 2. I think everybody else is going to have some shuffling going on. But that's just my thoughts.
Yeah. You?
Yeah, so I agree with the sentiments mostly that you made. Yeah, I think Denver for sure is definitely locked on number 1. Grizzlies, right now, they're 2 games ahead of the Kings. The Kings have been impressing me lately. I thought they were going to fall off from number 3 for myself, but they continue to light the beam, as they say. They keep winning games. I think the Grizzlies and Kings are going to stay where they are. And the Suns, I think they're going to have a strong end to the season. They might get up to 3. They're going to challenge the Kings for that, but I have them right now staying at number 4. And then, like you said, it's the Wild Wild West when it comes to 5 through 12. I mean, now all of a sudden you look up and now the Warriors are the 5th seed.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just a couple of weeks ago, they were like 10. And the Warriors as a 5th seed is scary. That is scary for the Suns at 4 or 5.
Yeah.
That should be up the Warriors round 1. And then if the Warriors upset, now the Nuggets are screwed. I mean, well, you're talking about the second round, you have to face the Suns or the Warriors. I mean, what a path to the potentially making the the NBA Finals there. So, I mean, I think for me, 5 through 12, I mean, outside of the Warriors, I don't see any of these teams really contending. I think it's just right now, in terms of true contenders, and I know you guys are Grizzlies fans, so you guys aren't going to want to hear this. I think it is just the Nuggets.
We're objective here. At least I am. So
yeah, I think it's just the Nuggets and the Suns. I don't even think the Warriors are really good. I think they can win a series or two. I don't see them going all the way. I think they've just been a little too consistent for my liking throughout the entire season. I think the Suns, with this addition of Kevin Durant, and I know they don't have the greatest bench, but when you're talking about Paul, Booker, Durant, and Ayton, I mean, that's just such a 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 that works together. I mean, Paul at this point doesn't even need to take shots. Booker is just a spot up shooter that can take shots off of passes, just a spot up shooter. Durant can do whatever he wants to do, and then Ayton just needs to be fed into the block. I mean, it really is just the only thing that can stop them, in my opinion, is if Jamal Murray goes bubble. If he goes bubble Jamal Murray, then we have a 6-7 game series between the Nuggets and the Suns, and maybe the Nuggets can finally get over the hump. But they need Jamal Murray to return to bubble form. And without that, I just can't see anyone beating the Suns team, even despite the lack of playing time that they've had. It's just such a seamless fit, barring injuries.
So, not one word about your Lakers, man. What's up?
But and my Lakers are screwed. LeBron out 3 weeks. Forget about it. That was the end of it. With LeBron in this lineup, I actually loved our chances. I thought we were for sure going to make the play-in with the trades we had made. And if we had this lineup before the season, I would have liked us to easily been like a 6 seed. But fortunately, we wanted to go into the season with Russell Westbrook, and now the LA Clippers are figuring out how that's going to work out for them. And we just held on to our guns too long. But yeah, I'm just going to think about the reality where we somehow had LeBron, D'Angelo Russell, Michael Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, Mo Bamba, and all these guys for the entire season. It would have been more interesting. I don't know if we would have been contenders, but it would have been more interesting.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, you I've listened to you long enough, MJ, for you to say that you are not a Grizzlies fan, even though you grew up in Tennessee. Memphis wasn't in town when you came in town, so I can't hold that against you. So I know plenty of folks that are like that, especially on the baseball side. It's all over the place here in Memphis of who's rooting for baseball and football, actually. So, the Western Conference. A few weeks ago, it was actually the episode after I finished with you. Mm-hmm. I told Donovan Moody on the following episode that, and he looked at me like I was smoking something or I was drunk when I said before Kyrie Irving was traded, before he was traded to the Mavericks, I said the one threat to Memphis is the Dallas Mavericks. That was my proclamation that if we ever face Dallas in the playoffs, for some reason they just have our number. Like for many, many years as Titan fans, if you remember, from 93 to 20-something, the Chargers kept beating the crap out of Titans, and we could not beat them for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. They just had our number, no matter what the team was or the era. But for this year, for the Mavericks, especially now, it seems like Kyrie and Luka may have it figured out, maybe. I don't know, maybe. I mean, one game against the 76ers was pretty impressive that they displayed the other night. Ja Morant is the living, breathing machine that is this Memphis Grizzlies team. Wherever he goes, this team goes. Yeah. The crux that is the Memphis Grizzlies that's going to screw us over is Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks with his shooting, he's going to kill the Grizzlies or it's going to do well for the Grizzlies. The history says that he's not going to do well for us. And we should have traded him at the deadline. That was my one hair-pulling moment of the trade deadlines, that we did not trade away Dillon Brooks to either get Mikal Bridges or OJ Anunoby from Toronto. So to what those two brought is what Dillon Brooks can't bring. They both play defense like he does. Yeah. Not dirty. And they can shoot and score the basketball, which is, if you've for those Grizzlies fans and hardcores out there, through the grit and grind era, we've had Mike Conley, Tony Allen, Zach Randolph, and Paul Gasol. What was the one thing missing from those Memphis Grizzlies? We did not have a small forward that could create his own shot. Yeah. If we had a LeBron type or a Giannis or a KD type all those years, Memphis would be going through the finals in the West easily with that five lineup easily. And for some reason, it just seems like history wants to repeat itself with us. We don't have that number 3 slasher of a difference maker on our team. But in terms of the West, yeah, you're Lakers. You get all the talk preseason, regular season. Shannon Sharp on for FS1 trying to bring in Dylan Brooks and whatnot. I don't know if you condemn him or you praise him what he did with Dylan Brooks.
Oh no, Shannon just loves attention. That whole incident was just a whole bunch of nonsense, and then they made up right afterwards. But no, I mean, it even gets annoying for me because like every single day on Undisputed, they're just talking about the same topics about the Lakers. Are they going to make the play-in? What are they going to do with Russell Westbrook? I mean, how many Russell Westbrook conversations are we going to have? I mean, my goodness. Thank God he's finally gone. Oh, my God. I'm so happy he's finally out of here.
Here's the thing that you probably are not taking into account. The draft you had, Lonzo Ball. Who did you pass up? And who do the Kings have?
That draft, Darren Fox.
Yep, he could have been on your Lakers squad.
I was thinking about number 1 was Tatum, though. We could have had Tatum.
Oh, yeah.
Tatum, too. Yep, that too. So, the point guard being the main crux of that.
Yeah.
So, I think the Grizzlies are going to ultimately end up number 2. How I view the Kings, they're the Kings until further notice, in my opinion. They're going to slip off at some point until they can put it together. I equivocate this year's Kings to last year's Minnesota Timberwolves. They're the flavor of the week. They're great to see on TV. They haven't made the playoffs in so long. Everyone wants to get hype around them, but they can't put it together in the playoffs. Almost like the Oklahoma City Thunder when they made noise in the bubble year, when they were supposed to tank that year when they had Chris Paul that year with the Thunder. So I equivocate this year's Kings to last year's Timberwolves. The Clippers, God knows where they're going to fall. I can't see them being in the play-in tournament. That's going to be embarrassing if they're in the play-in tournament, the Clippers. The Nuggets, guards are just injured left and right. That's why I'm not worried about them because outside the bubble year, their guards are just not healthy. They can never stay healthy. Until they can stay healthy, bubble style, to your point, MJ, there's nothing to discuss with the Nuggets. Like, Joker can do great in the regular season, and then when teams are playing you back to back to back to back for playoff series, that's when you get figured out. It's like, okay, let's shut this guy down, and then let's, like, torch the other guys. So, Memphis is going to stay at number 2. Oh,
I was going to say, it's going to be an interesting Western Conference playoffs. I mean, it'll be some great matchups. I think top to bottom it'll be some great matchups. And again, I think really even some of these teams that could be at the 6, 7 spots, they could give some teams a run for their money. Like if Dallas drops to a 7 and Memphis, I'm just saying that's like what I just think about is that 6-7 matchup. Not 6-7, but the 6 and 7s. Just because again, anybody could fall anywhere. It'll be interesting, especially if the Warriors are a 6 seed. It's like, I'm sorry, even at the Warriors.
I'm not going to sleep well at night if we have to face the Mavericks or the Warriors in the first round. I'm not going to sleep well at night. I'm not going to feel comfortable at all. I'll be like, no. Wake me up next year. Wake me up next year. I'll pass on this year. I have no confidence because we can't put it together.
I mean, it's going to literally, it's not, I feel like the seed will not matter once we get to the playoffs. It's going to be matchups. That's all that's going to matter.
The matchups, I would say, for Memphis that has the greater point of success, I would say against the Clippers because of their guard suspect play. The Nuggets because of their guard suspect play. I would say it's 50-50, coin toss between us and the Kings, if that was ever to be a matchup. I would say because right now we're supposed to face off against Utah right now. If the playoffs start today, we're facing off against Utah, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe the standings changed before we start recording this. We're a great matchup against Utah, obviously. Minnesota, if we play them again, I think we'll run all over them because Cat's injured. You got Mike Conley there, who's not as explosive as a D'Angelo Russell. So kind of happy that he's out of Minnesota. So that's a plus for Memphis. I do not like us against the Mavericks. I don't like us against the Warriors. I don't like us against... I'll actually say we do have a shot against the Suns. For some reason, like, it's those kinds of teams that KD is on that whenever Memphis... Whether it be with the Thunder, for all those years he was with the Thunder, he had Harden, Westbrook and company, and doing well. And everyone assumed they have such a great roster There's no way they're going to lose to Memphis, and they lose to Memphis more often than not. So for some reason, I'm just going to say just for stigma reasons that Memphis will handle their business in a 7-game series against the Suns. In 7 games, they will handle business against the Suns. I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk like it was that one year when we got them 4-1.
Yeah.
So last thoughts, MJ?
Yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting. And yeah, like you say, like top to bottom, it's going to be very interesting and very fun to watch. And I love that whenever we can, like, even in the first round, really enjoy the matchups and really be able to have conversations and enjoy NBA playoff basketball, because God knows regular season hasn't been entertaining in a while.
Yeah. All right. So, fellas, the main event, the main topic is the Tennessee Titans. And last time you were on the show, we were coming off a horrendous Chargers loss. And the last time I touched base with this topic was a few episodes ago. God knows what I was talking about. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. So, first topic we're going to be talking about, the scouting combine is underway, fellas. It's underway. The quarterbacks are displaying their skills. We got a fast D tackle that's apparently faster than Anquan Bolden of all people. We have a D tackle that just did that today. And the coaches and GMs are open for criticisms and questions. And one of the things that popped out of my head is that the new OC, Tim Kelly, was asked, was our offense predictable last year? And to which he said the wrong answer. He said, no, it was not predictable, to where if you are a sane Titans fan, you have to be pulling your hair like, what are you saying? Or like, why are you saying this right now? So I'll start off by saying this, is that what was the one thing that Vrabel said in his introductory Zoom conference for introducing Tim Kelly? Familiarity and carryover. When you take that into account, and then you hear Tim Kelly's comments of saying our offense last year was not predictable, you put 2 and 2 together, this is definitely going to be a hire that's going to be tied to Vrabel's belt. And if this goes south like it did this year for the Titans, don't be surprised if the hot seat gets turned on for Mike Vrabel for 2024 or throughout 2023, because this is going to be his definitive hire for sure at the offensive coordinator. Vrabel will go as Tim Kelly goes. If this offense is subpar or worse, God forbid it's worse than this year, then both of them are going to be gone, and who knows what Rand Carthon's going to do, John Robinson 2.0 style, when Mike Mularkey got fired all those years ago. So for predictability. We ran the ball almost every time on first down, for crying out loud. Pass the ball, just pass the ball every other first down that you got. Just that's all we ask as Titans fans, is that you also come up with creative plays. Because if you have 3 tight ends on the field, everyone knows in their right mind, number 22 with the dreadlocks or his braided up ponytail, he's going to get the football and run with it and just stack the line. And one incriminating thing to the predictability thing is that A.J. Brown was recently on the podcast is saying, hey, y'all were facing against the Titans. You gave him plays. I gave them all the plays. They didn't change a freaking thing. It's crazy. That was a winnable game for us, and we still find a way to blow it. That was a winnable game, like for the first quarter and a half, and then it just got out of hand from there. So comments are not good. Actions are another thing, to where if he can do better with Tannehill, Willis, or whoever we draft. Vrabel said Dobbs in his one comment. Oh my God, if Dobbs comes back. Oh my God. No. No, the Joshua Dobbs. Golly. The hype around that man as the season ended. By the way, just to get your quick thoughts. Validation for the Joshua Dobbs stuff. Was it overhyped, or were you just rolling your eyes a bit?
I was rolling my eyes a bit. I'm like, yo, he's coming in and he's just filling in a role. It's like week to week, can he do this? Probably not. I think he could be a great third string guy if we moved on from Willis and we drafted somebody new and they just wanted him in the locker room. He's a smart guy, but I just don't know if he's going to be. I don't see him as a long-term fit for a quarterback.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to close off my, should I be concerned or not concerned? Right now, I'm a little bit concerned because you put two and two together with what Vrabel said when he introduced Tim Kelly via Zoom, and then what Tim Kelly said at the combine. You put two and two together. It is what it is, unfortunately, as Titan fans, and we have to suffer through it. But we won't know what the end result's going to be until training camp, OTAs, all that stuff this year, and then we finally get into regular season. So, MJ, I'll kick it to you. Concerning, not worried. What are your thoughts on Tim Kelly's comments?
Yeah, no, definitely slightly concerning for sure. I'm also not surprised, right? We also have to remember that Tim Kelly was on this offensive staff. I mean, he was the passing game coordinator for this team. So if he's saying that, we were being predictable, or if he's even, disparaging the offense, that's also a reflection on him. When they talk about, he had a lot to do with, I want to say it was either first or second downs, or maybe second and third, either one of those. That's a reflection on him. He was the one that was coming up with some of these plays and making some of these suggestions. And I mean, he's not going to want to disparage Todd Downing. He's going to want to, maintain, his, relationship with his boy in terms of that regard. And it's infuriating because as Science fans, we want to see something different. We obviously can tell that this offense isn't good. And look, Vrabel's convinced. I know that he's convinced at this point that it's a personnel problem. And I think we can say that the personnel can be better. I think we all agree that wide receivers can be better. The offensive line needs retooling. But at the same time, despite that, the play calling was just not ideal last season. It was certainly predictable. And while you can argue, with a lack of personnel, maybe predictability is a good thing, at least say that. At least saying, well, yeah, we were, run heavy on first down because, we just didn't feel comfortable doing other things considering our personnel. Okay, honest. But if you're just, not even acknowledging the fact that you were predictable offensively last year, I mean, we have the numbers. We can pull up the data. We can show that we were one of the teams that ran the most on first down. So you can't say that it's not true. It's literally there. So we're going to see. And I think this is just pure speculation. I have no idea. I have no confirmation on this. I really feel like Mike Vrabel had some terrible relationship with Matt LaFleur when he was here. Because remember, Matt LaFleur was someone he didn't have any familiarity with.
That was John Robinson. Brought him in.
He brought him basically off of John Robinson's request. The offense wasn't great, but that was like Mariota dealing with, some of his issues that he was having, his descent as a quarterback and some other things. Mm-hmm. And then Matt LaFleur went off to Green Bay, and since then it's been in-house. I think for some reason that scarred him, and since then he wants to remain in-house. And it worked with Arthur Smith. It was great with Arthur Smith. Since then, hasn't been great. One decent year with Downing, and then after that it went downhill. So, I mean, we're going to see this is going to be on Vrabel at this point. I mean, Amy Adams-Strunk made it clear when she fired John Robinson, heads will roll. People will be held accountable if things do not change. And I don't know. We have a long way to go in this offseason to see what type of offense we're going to see here personnel-wise. I'm not convinced that it's going to be much better than what we've seen, and that's going to be very frustrating for us all.
Yeah, Josh, you said something interesting when you started. You talked about Vrabel being on the hot seat. I think the seat's already hot. I think if we just think about his tenure, I think we can think about, he made that run to the AFC Championship. Then the year after that, they get bounced in the second round.
First round.
Then they get bounced in
Second round.
They get bounced in the second round. So he hasn't gotten back to that AFC Championship spot because he's made an AFC Championship with really, that was when Tannehill stepped into the role behind Marcus Mariota. And then early exit in the playoffs, then missing the playoffs. And look, I'm just going to say this right now. I got a feeling that the AFC South is about to get a lot more competitive heading into the future. I think Jacksonville's emerging. I think Jacksonville's starting to figure out their formula. Indianapolis, I feel like once they get their head coach, they get their quarterback, they've got some tools that they've got already. If they just got to build around, they've got the tools. They just need the main course. Houston is a franchise. I'm going to just say that. They're a franchise. But I do think that Tennessee and Jacksonville are going to be fighting for the title every year right now, and Indianapolis isn't too far behind a young Jacksonville team that's on the come up. And Tennessee is kind of the older guys on the block now if you really look at us. So again, I think Vrabel's seat could already be hot, and if we can't compete with Jacksonville, and if we let Indiana or Indianapolis jump back into this thing of being competitive, Tennessee's gonna have to change their formula. So I just think the seat could already be hot for Vrabel.
So when you're saying they have to change their formula if he's on if we don't do well this year. So What formula would you change this year? Like you're saying the formula last year was good, but just wasn't executed?
I'd say, man, I think Vrabel's got some stuff that he does really well. I think guys like playing for Vrabel. I think he gets them up for games. I think that when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, he's really not atrocious. I think he's had some miscues when it comes to his secondary play, but I think in the box, the Titans are great. I think their front seven can get the job done. It's just their secondary. Other than Byard, it's really nobody that's really consistent. So, again, I think if he can net on that secondary, Tennessee could have a solid defense. And, again, defense can get you pretty far. Defenses can help you make runs. When it comes to the offensive side of the ball, the biggest issue is we've got no weapons for real. Even Henry, like Derrick Henry, is a monster, but I wouldn't consider him a weapon anymore because everybody knows what the weapon is and how you can stop it. I mean, if teams are just saying, all right, let's put 8 in the box, well, let's put 9 in the box and let's make them air it out. I mean, there's no threats in the air. I mean, our pass game is play action, dump down to a tight end, or play action into a screen. So it's like that's the formula that's got to get fixed. I think if we can fix the secondary and if we can get some just sort of offensive scheme system, I mean, even basic high schools have protocol that they say, you know what, we're going to run an over-under offensive set where we're looking to run mesh routes all game long and somebody's going to be open. We don't even have that. We just say Henry, 30 carries. We throw it to Henry 10 times a game, and then we take maybe 1 or 2 deep shots. To me, it's just that's the formula that we've got to figure out is how can we get our secondary consistent? Do we have to dumb things down? Do we have to just whatever it is to make our secondary just more consistent, make it easier on those guys? And then when it comes to the passing game, we've got to figure something out. And even just the play call scheme is just, again, it's almost like it's elementary, really. It's like a Madden level, not even all pro level on Madden. But that's my thought on that.
I will just take you off to the side and say, for you to say we had secondary issues, we've had only 3 or 4 games all year where we had over 30 points. And for the down stretch of the year, we only gave up, it seemed like 20 points a game. If you tell that to any general manager, your defense is going to average all year 20 points given up a game. They're going to say, where do I sign that contract?
Yeah.
Our secondary, yes, suspect, but wasn't that bad to where they're airing out left and right. Because if that was the case, then we'd be beat 30-plus points a game, and we'll be definitely peaking top 3 for sure in this year's draft. So defense is not the issue. It's the offense not scoring over 13, 14, 17 points a game, even getting to 20.
Yeah.
You can't even score 20 points a game. Like this is 2008 or 2009 all over again with this offense. It's ridiculous. That's the defense. Jim Schwartz, we're gonna see who's the real genius here. Was it Jim Schwartz's secret formula when he was here and this defense went well with Shane Bowen? Or now that he's off in Cleveland, it was Shane Bowen doing what, like this was his defense taking over. So we're going to find out this year if this defense is still the same, if not better. Then that's a testament to Shane Bowen being a really good defensive coordinator. So in terms of the offense, there's nowhere you can go with this offense. This offense is lackluster. It's uninspiring. You know Derrick Henry's going to get the ball, and it's such torture to watch as a Titan fan. It's such complete utter torture. We're great in the first half of our season when we were winning 7 games. We were 7-3. We were great in the first half. Yeah. Can't put it together in the second half because of our adjustments at halftime. Todd Downing was so horrible at. Thus, the predictability came into play. If Tim Kelly can do better at in-game managing with play calling, then you can see that production switch from 7 games won to easily 9, 10 games win. And then based on this year, you're in the playoffs with just that 3-game swing right there. So in terms,
I want to. MJ said something earlier, and you just reminded me of it. MJ, you were talking about how just Vrabel, and you just hit me with some defensive stats. Really made me think about this. Vrabel's a defensive-minded coach. You were talking about his experience with LaFleur. Do you think because he's like such a defensive-minded guy, he needs an offensive coordinator who can really just own that for real? Like I just,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
And definitely like he also has things that he wants to like do offensive. I mean, he definitely wants to instill. I'm not necessarily sure like if he wants to be a running team. People will sometimes say, he definitely wants to be a physical team, and he definitely wants to have a strong run component. I'll say that for sure. And he has things that he likes offensively, but he definitely needs someone that's going to take over that side of the ball. That's why an Eric Bieniemy would have been a great fit here. That's what they're going to run with Ron Rivera. And Eric Bieniemy, we're going to see how it works out. They have work to do offensively at the quarterback position before they could even do anything. But we're going to see how that works out. But I definitely think he's someone that needs, and he comes from the Belichick, tree, not coaching tree, but from that philosophy of, Belichick, he's a defensive guy. He's going to input his thoughts offensively. But you saw when Belichick hired his guys last year, how well that worked out, So he needs someone that's going to really take over that side of the ball.
All right, so last thoughts before we get into our final Titans discussion. Do you see us ultimately come off season is done, everything's ready for training camp, we're ready to go in regular season. No matter who you think is the quarterback or whoever our weapons are going to be, do we improve this year or do we not improve this year? I'll start with you, Aaron.
Man, I'm
7-10 record.
I want to be optimistic. I want to say we improve this year. I want to say we improve this year just because I think there's going to just be some massive shifts. And really just the biggest shift that I'm thinking about is right now is the offensive line. I'm a big Taylor Lewan guy. I follow him. No free shout-outs, though. Follow him big time. But I just think if, we rebuild that offensive line, get some youth on that offensive line. I also liked the firings of the offensive line coach. I think that was a big deal. I think that shift is going to help the offensive line. And I just think big picture, that was a weak point for this past season. I think if that offensive line gets better, just automatically as a unit, our team gets better. So I'm saying that we're going to improve.
And before I throw it to you, MJ, it just popped in my head again. You with the firing of Todd Downing and the Carter, I think was the O-line coach. The one firing they did not do, was your we talked the strength and conditioning coach that's been here since 2019 is still with us. He is still here, and they changed his job title this year to director of player personnel or whatever fancy title it was this year. He still keeps the title this year. And Vrabel, when he's talking about analytics and injuries, you just want to roll your eyes like, that is not how analytics works. That's just coach speak. I just write that off as coach speak. And then this year they say we got new turf. We're getting new turf, which I'm actually a big proponent of. I can't stand our natural turf. It looks ugly. It looks disgusting. It's not appealing as the fan to watch that disgusting field that used to be the Coliseum, LP Field, and now Nissan Stadium. It is an ugly field to watch. So I am looking forward to that. But for them to say when they said they're coming out with a new turf that this is going to help improve our injuries. We're not going to have as much injuries as we used to. I'm like, no. You can buy a new car, but if you have the same drunken fool coming out of jail and you say, hey, the first car you're going to drive is a Porsche right there, is that guy going to make better decisions still under the influence? He doesn't kill anybody in my scenario here, so don't come at me on that. If you have someone drunk that crashes a car and you reward him with a better car and he's still drunk driving that car, is that car not going to get damaged? Is he not going to It's still the same guy. Until you change the driver, until you change the coach, the strength and conditioning coach, you're not going anywhere. Because I expect us now to be, I don't want to say as much, but the last 2 years we have been equally injured to hell and back and whatnot. So I expect us to be not that injured. If he better be fired if we are injured as much as we have been the last 2 years. If he is not fired as much as we've been injured the last 2 years, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to lose my mind as a Titan fan. I'm going to lose my mind. So I'm sorry, MJ. Improve, not improve. What do you expect ultimately this season?
Yeah, so it's still too early to say. I really want to know if we're leaning more towards rebuild or just try to compete again with Tannehill. It really just depends on that. So I'll give an answer for both. if we roll again with Tannehill, we retool the roster and assume we do a decent job at that. We'll improve. From our 7-10 record, we'll contend for the playoffs. We'll be maybe 9, maybe 10 wins. I don't see much better than that. I think there's just too much work to be done. If we decide, to move off Tannehill and maybe we get a rookie in here and we like run a quarterback competition and it could be like a Hooker versus Willis versus Dobbs or something, and we're still working on the roster. It's definitely going to be a regression, even from 7-10. It could not terribly. I think it's still probably 5. But assuming there are young quarterbacks played well, and then next year you're looking at a high draft pick, I wouldn't be that upset about it. Assuming again, I want to see some progression from whoever our next quarterback is going to be. But I feel like either way, next season I have tempered expectations. I feel like I'm more over the idea of just like kind of trying to compete for the wild card again, and that's where I'm leaning. I mean, it'd be fine to make the playoffs again, but even I was over it this season, to be honest with you. So we'll see what they do. If they stick with Tannehill and they reach to the roster, they can compete for the playoffs and improve back to being a 9 or 10 win team.
All right, so now we're going to dive into the goods here. The Chicago Bears won the first lost to the first overall pick by losing to who was it? The Packers? I want to say it was the Packers. Yeah. No, it wasn't Packers.
Was it the Vikings?
Vikings, yes. They lost to the Vikings last week of the season. Yeah. And Houston beat Indianapolis, and thus the Bears have the first overall pick. It's been reported that the Bears are open for business. And the main topic of this show is, can the Titans ultimately gun it for number 1 overall, jump from 11-1? And in your mock trades, gentlemen, which Titans player is safe and who's not safe? And I'll start with you, MJ.
Yeah, so in my opinion, there's only one Titan that's safe, and that is Jeffrey Simmons. I think this is right now the franchise player for this team moving forward. While Derrick Henry's the franchise player right now, I think moving forward it has to be Jeffrey Simmons. I would even be open to trading Kevin Byard, who still has years left, and I still think is one of the top safeties in the NFL. But if we acquired Byard in 2 firsts, I'd do it for number 1. I'm not sure if the other team would say this, but I would do it for number 1. I think if you can really secure that franchise quarterback that you believe in, Bryce Young, then I would be totally down for it. Because again, you just miss these opportunities, and whenever you have that opportunity to get that guy, now you have your pick of the litter. I think it's much better than ending up being like a Patriots and being like, well, Mac Jones is there. Let's just take him as the 5th quarterback taken in the draft. Then you ended up with the 5th quarterback taken in the draft. Now, sometimes it can work out with the Ravens. They traded for Lamar Jackson. He was great for them at the end of the first round. But I'd like to have at least my choice instead of, well, this quarterback fell to us. We just had to take Brandon Weeden. We just had to take Jordan Love, or the Packers traded for him, but this guy kind of fell to us, so we kind of took him. I prefer to get your choice.
All right, Aaron.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only people who are safe for me that aren't on the trading block is Jeffrey Simmons, of course. I think we hold on to Kevin Byard, and I think, of course, King Henry. I think those are the only 3 guys that are for sure not movable. Jeffrey Simmons is pretty much the future. I think he's gonna have a Jarrell Casey type career. I think he's going to retire a Titan. Kevin Byard.
Even he got traded to Denver, though.
I know he did, but it was like, I'm gonna be real with you. It was when we had got. I think the reason we got traded is because we had drafted Jeffrey Simmons the year before, and again, I think it was a money issue. It was like we couldn't pay all the guys we needed to pay and keep Casey, and he was getting to that age where it's like you got to figure out what's next. And then Kevin Byard, he's a Middle Tennessee guy, played college ball in the state. I don't see him going anywhere. I think he's the one vet that we could have stick around that we just throw a bone to. And I could see him retiring as a Titan. And then of course Derrick Henry, he's just such a vital piece. If we move Derrick Henry, that's clear signs that we're in a rebuild for real. If we move Derrick Henry, that means that that we're starting over as a franchise, because that's the one guy that we run everything through for real.
So, you guys might hate me for this. You guys might hate me what I'm about to say here. The question is, who's safe and who's not safe, or any player at all? It seems like with you, Aaron, that the key players like Simmons, Henry, and Byard are safe. and you're open to trading away Kevin Byard, MJ, I am going to say that with Jeffrey Simmons, who is not signed to a new deal yet, Bears have all that cap space. That is the ultimate appetizer, like main course meal you could say to the Bears and say, here is a good defensive piece for you right here. Here's a good defensive piece. And we'll give you our first round pick for this year, and we'll maybe throw in a third or second round pick for next year's draft. That may not be enough. Maybe they'll ask for one more first round, but ultimately that's 3 picks in one player. That's 3 picks in one player compared to what the Rams had to give in picks from 15 to jump to 1 the last time the first overall pick was traded, which was us, the Tennessee Titans, John Robinson's first year. We had the first overall pick. Rams jumped from 15-1, and they handed us the King's ransom. And what better yet for the Chicago Bears to have a King's ransom than to have a dominant nose tackle edge rusher to akin of those Bears defenses of lore and Jeffrey Simmons and say, here you go. This looks appetizing to you. Derrick Henry is not safe. He is not safe. Will they trade him? I cannot see us trading away Derrick Henry to the Bears. They better not trade him to the Buffalo Bills as per the rumors that were percolating the last week or so. God forbid if he gets traded to the Buffalo Bills. That goes. It's like saying to the Packers, hey, we're trading Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings again. We're trading Aaron Rodgers to the Bears. Why not? Why not? Within our conference. No. Kevin Byard, I would say, is not safe as well, but he is that kind of guy that if you want him to restructure his contract, he can. Like, he does seem like that kind of guy. He will restructure his deal. So I do see him sticking around. Derrick Henry has got one more good year left, and then you got to ship him off. The point of Derrick Henry is you ship him off now, again, to your point. It's a clear sign that if you ship off Derrick Henry this year, it's a clear sign that you are doing a whole different new philosophy offensively going forward, no matter who the quarterback is. Mm-hmm. What I honestly want to happen, and it works both ways. It's a double-edged sword. Titan pun for you with the swords. It's a double-edged sword for what I want Tennessee to do. Trade away Tannehill or cut him. Ultimately, you trade him away or cut him. You do that, you save 18-something million. If you do it now, if you do it June 1st, it's $27 million. It's more feasible to do it now, so you can have that money to get an O-line or new receivers and whatnot. You trade away Jeffrey Simmons because he's going to eat a whole lot of your cap money. He's going to eat a ton of your cap money that you were going to want for someone on an offensive side of the ball. And the way Tier Tart, Rashad Weaver, and we expect Harold Landry to come back next year and be that player that got paid, the defense shouldn't be much of an issue because Jeffrey Simmons was like injured 3, 4, 5 games this year. And the defense interiorly still played well. They still played well in interior defense this year to where every time they got a new sack and it was a player you never heard of, it's like, oh, this defensive scheme works and Big Jeff's not here. So maybe you feel more comfortable seeing that on film, say, okay, maybe we can live without Jeffrey Simmons. Almost like when Albert Hainsworth left and we had Jason Jones. Yeah. Like, as like the backup piece. Like, you saw him dominate in that Pittsburgh Steelers game in 2008 against the Pittsburgh Steelers to win the number 1 seed. You saw JJ ripping apart Ben Roethlisberger. You're like, okay, we got something going for it if we can't keep Albert Hainsworth for the long term. That's what I see for the Titans. Who that player is, I don't know, because they're just so interchangeable with this defensive scheme. Back to what I want to say. I want us and MJ, just so you know, my little sister goes to Liberty University. I've seen Malik Willis in person. I've met Malik Willis. He is a great guy, and he is he's just a great guy to be around. So, oh no, I'm totally fibbing. Taylor Heineke. I'm thinking I've met him. My first job was Old Dominion University. Taylor Heineke, who's the Commanders quarterback. He's a good guy to hang around. But I did see Malik Willis for a few games at Liberty University, and I actually saw him against Middle Tennessee, which was his worst game. It was his worst game. And the way he was still able to conduct himself on the field, yes, Liberty is not your prototypical offense. I mean, I say that because there might be a bias when I say this. Double-edged sword. You start Malik Willis. If he improves, you got something as a quarterback. If you don't, and you don't think it's going to go well offensively for your quarterback, and assuming you got a good O-line and you got good receivers around him, it's sink or swim. It's the Jalen Hurts effect, because after they traded Carson Wentz and they just drafted Jalen Hurts the year they had Carson Wentz, they weren't expecting Jalen Hurts to be anything. And people want to play the Heath Ledger comparison. He was casted, and no one liked Heath Ledger being casted as Joker. Then you see him on the film. It's like, oh, he's a great Joker. We never thought he was going to be bad. No, y'all didn't want him. I mean, I guess some folks said the same thing about Hugh Jackman when he was first cast as Wolverine. For Malik Willis, this has to be a sink or swim year for him. This has to be of how the Eagles approached Jalen Hurts this past year with the Eagles did with the second year of Jalen Hurts, is that we're going to provide you with the best we can around you. If you show signs of improvement, you can stay. You're a quarterback going forward. If you don't, we're going to look for someone else, and we're in the trade business for maybe Lamar Jackson or whoever it may be at the time, or whoever else we could draft or sign as a quarterback. And that turned out well in Jalen Hurts' favor. The next year they trade for A.J. Brown, and look where they were. They're in Super Bowl. They're in Super Bowl this year. And so for the hate or mistrust that they have in Malik Willis to say that he did lackluster this year, I would just challenge them to say, put Josh Allen, any quarterback of high octane, like top caliber quarterback, give them Todd Downing, this O-line, Dennis Daly as your left tackle, this receiving crop, minus Chika Okonkwo, who's a really good receiver. He's a good tight end. I think he's going to be really good for us. Give those quarterbacks that scenario. How different is it going to be? You're going to score one more touchdown, maybe? One more touchdown in your games. Yeah. Essentially, Malik Willis, like, there's no scenario where he can win. There's just no scenario. It's not. The offensive play calling for Malik Willis was that similar as if Ryan Tannehill was still the quarterback. In the first half of that Kansas City Chiefs game, brought hope. It brought hope in my heart as a Malik Willis fan, because that first half, we were running zone reads with Derrick Henry. Malik Willis was throwing darts to Austin Hooper. We scored a touchdown. We scored another touchdown. It's like, oh, here we go. Here's his coming out party. And then the second half happens, and we know what happens in the second half with Titans games this past year. So that's my ultimate strategy of what I want us to do. And if he fails, then you got the USC quarterback, and you got the North Carolina quarterback coming out in next year's draft. And you may have your pick of the litter there, which some folks are saying are better than this year's crop of quarterbacks. So for this year, we could go many ways. We could trade for Aaron Rodgers. We could sign Derek Carr. I honestly don't know where the season's going to go. Like, for previous years, it's like, okay, we made the playoffs. Okay, great. We made the AFC Championship game. How do we get to the Super Bowl? Okay, we missed the first round of the playoffs. We get bounced the first round. Okay, we got the number one seed. Okay, how do we improve that and get back to the AFC Championship? And then we just fell off a cliff. So this year, we could go many different ways. So I'll let you, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Willis, while I agree with you, he did not have, a lot around him in terms of the weapons, Todd Downing, etc. Still, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. At the very least, look, you definitely can throw him in the quarterback competition. I wouldn't say he's a starter. I think, because even though I don't love the Dobbs conversation either, Dobbs gives you a better chance of winning right now. That's why they played him, which still doesn't make any sense to me, because you fired your GM, you're obviously tanking. So I think you'd have to have some sort of quarterback competition. But yeah, at this point, I'm done with Tannehill. Again, like, you can still compete for the players with him, but if you can move him, you have to move off him. You're not going to regret it. You're not going to regret it. He won't even have a season that Phillip Rivers had for the Colts. Okay, he's not even going to go. He might go somewhere and maybe win 10 games for them and take them to the playoffs and leave round one. It's going to be nothing burger. There's no difference between him and Garoppolo. You can get Garoppolo for cheaper. If you really want Garoppolo, go get Garoppolo for. He's going to sign for cheaper than Tannehill is going to make this season. At this point, I'm out. And Garoppolo had a pass rating of 105 or 103 this year. So that's just where you're at. You're just stuck at this point. And we don't have the 49ers to where we're so stacked and we can win anyway. We're not the 49ers right now. So you can either wait 2-3 years before we are the 49ers, and then Tannehill's 38, and I don't know what his contract is going to be then, or you can go ahead and start moving on.
Yeah, it's if you start the situation I see is if we start Tannehill this year, we're going to be back in the same boat we are in right now a year from now. And that's the frustrating thing that sometimes fans just need to swallow their pride. Sometimes it's not about winning because if you're just going to be repeating the same process over and over and over again, what's the definition of insanity? You repeat the same thing over and over again. It's expecting a different result. And part of that's going to come to quarterback plays. Part of that's going to come to play calling. And part of that's going to come to coaching of what Vrabel wants out of his coaches because it seems like this really is going to be a collaboration between the new GM, Rand Carthon, and Mike Vrabel. And funny enough, I had Sam Phelan, MJ, for an episode. And when we were recording, like live when we were recording, he was breaking during our recording waves that Rand Carthon was hired. And before he announced that towards the end of our episode, we had this discussion. Should the new GM have a say in picking who's the offensive coordinator? We both agreed, yes. That has not happened, though. That has not happened. This is clearly a Mike Vrabel hire for sure. This is definitely a Mike Vrabel hire. And ultimately, if this fails with Tim Kelly, it's not going to be good, especially with the new stadium coming up. You gotta produce the goods now, or else you gotta cut bait with what's not working because you got a pretty stadium that's gonna be coming up soon. You want to be able to fill up those bars. You want to fill up the seats, season tickets. You want to get something the fans can be hyped about, and that's the reason why I say Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry are not safe in terms of being traded away, because I do not foresee them still playing by the time the stadium opens up.
Henry won't be.
So that's why I say this year. They are not safe in terms of if you want to move them now, you can absolutely do that. Do that now and set yourself up for a better future.
I'm just thinking about, man, you think he's going to make the same mistake? I'm just saying, if you look at Robinson's track record, he traded away A.J. Brown, one of our go-to guys on offense. You think he's going to do the same thing with Jeffrey Simmons in his first NFL draft that he's the man in charge? He's going to trade away, again, one of our go-to guys on a specific side of the ball for just moving up. I mean, I just don't. I think it's too soon to do something like that.
I equate VA defensive tackles to almost like offensive linemen. It's like you can find them off the street. You can just find any one of them off the street and be able to like plug it away. For some reason, we can't do that with Dennis Daly last year. We some reason could not sign an offensive lineman in free agency that was available that you think is not better than Dennis Daly. Come on here. Jeez. I mean, it's to what I mentioned earlier. We had several games where we didn't have Jeffrey Simmons. The year before, similar situation. And our defense still got the pressure. They still got the sacks. Our linebackers still got to him. Yeah. And with that pressure, it takes the pressure off of the corners back there and the safeties, and Byer can cook with whatever he's got. And Christian Fulton and company and Roger McCreary, yes, he had a bad second half of season, but that first half, you saw some sparks
some good flashes.
Some good flashes.
I have to give you pushback on that defensive tackle analogy, though, because I see a lot of, especially we're talking about top tier defensive tackles, though. Yeah. Those are the difference makers, though. Look at Aaron Donald, Super Bowl. Look at Javon Hargrave and the impact he made for the Eagles that got them, almost to the Super Bowl. Look at Fletcher Cox, who was won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. Chris Jones for the Chiefs, man. If you get that playmaking defensive tackle, if that actually gets a pass rush, it changes everything for, the opposing offense, because now they have to, take into account that this defensive tackle is going to come at them as well as these edge rushers, and it makes their job easier. I don't know if Rashad Weaver gets the sack total that he has without Jeffrey Simmons there. I don't know if Danico Autry gets the sack total that he has without Jeffrey Simmons in there.
Yeah, so I would push back on that a bit to say, who are those quarterbacks of those defensive tackle teams? Much better than ours. Much better than ours right now. They're much better than ours.
Good. So that's why I argue I want a quarterback, and then I want one big player on the defensive line. Right after, I want a quarterback, a tackle, and then one big player on the defensive line. I think either an end or a defensive tackle, but don't sleep on the defensive tackle.
Yeah. So
I'll sleep on the quarterback, though. I think lockdown quarterback's overrated. I'll agree with that. Ramsey's the last one since Ramsey. That's like the only really lockdown corner that's
Ramsey's falling off the map too now, though. Like really, I mean, you look at his plays.
So in terms of us gunning for the number one pick, and then ultimately should we gun for a franchise quarterback this year? To your point, Aaron, is that the division's going to be tougher, and you're saying Houston's just a franchise. They get Bryce Young somehow with the number 2 overall pick. then good night. Just good night. They're gonna be they got their quarterback for the foreseeable future.
Then everybody
and we don't.
Yeah. But you got to think the
And
coach
the Colts are number 4.
so they're gonna get a quarterback.
Yeah. So
everybody's about to have their quarterback except
for Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna be left holding the basket of the old quarterback with Ryan Tannehill or whoever that may be.
Who are y'all thinking is the top quarterback in this draft? Just are y'all sold on Bryce Young?
Yeah, so I'm definitely sold on Bryce. I know the size is an issue, but I think, man, his football instincts, his IQ, his ability to read the field, for me, is number 1. But Stroud is a close number 2 for me, and I'd be happy with either one of them.
We could have both of those quarterbacks in the AFC South with Trevor Lawrence. Wow, this is gonna be. I'm gonna say Titans got to figure something out. They got to. And
Tennessee might be able to get Will Levis from Kentucky too. So you want to talk about 3 fresh quarterbacks in the NFL draft comes to the AFC South. That's going to be very, very interesting. But are we sold on Bryce Young? I mean, he's a good quarterback. I mean, I'm not going to deny with what happened to Alabama. He had a great year. It's just how many times are these top overall quarterbacks outside of Joe Burrow have we seen go into the worst team in the NFL and it hasn't worked out? And thus you get these quarterbacks to go to teams that have a more proven record or have a more solid foundation, like a Patrick Mahomes that goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. You have Andy Reid. You got Lamar Jackson, who with Ozzie Newsome and John Harbaugh. So, I mean, yeah, they could go to Houston or Indianapolis, and I'm not sold on Indianapolis as GM because they can't seem to get anything right with their coaches or their quarterbacks. So all the hype that their GM gets, and he's still around.
By the way, somehow our GM got fired before him. I'm pretty sure they're hired the same offseason.
Yeah, they were. So
I don't know. I'm big on CJ Stroud. I think I think if he ends up in Indianapolis, I think he could be somebody who gives the Tennessee Titans a headache. And again, I think it's just because Ohio State guy, and I think Ohio State to me is just more realistic. It's easier to get an evaluation on a guy coming out of Ohio State rather than Alabama. Alabama, you're getting 5-star wide receivers. You're getting 5-star offensive linemen. Ohio State, you're getting these high talent guys. But I think it's also just some of the talent is just a little bit more realistic. You're not getting flooded with some of the best athletes in the world.
Is it really?
I think it is.
I was going to say, normally I'd agree. This is the case where that's the opposite. Because Stroud had the crazy wide receivers. He had 2 first-round wide receivers last year, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. He has Marvin Harrison next year. He has Jackson Smith and Jigba coming out this year. That's 4 first-round wide receivers.
So, to which I say, you had Dwayne Haskins. We've had Justin Fields. I don't know if there's another quarterback peppered in there from Ohio State. They just seem to come in and they can't pass well in the NFL. Rest is so Dwayne Haskins, sadly not with us, tragically. Justin Fields, if he gets a good O-line, he can throw the ball. But he's a good runner. He's a good runner for sure. Yeah. So Chicago's got their quarterback. So CJ Stroud, it's just a matter of where he's going to end up. Like if he ends up in Carolina, he's going to be screwed for his career. He's going to be whoever goes to the following teams: Houston, Carolina, now the Raiders.
Yeah.
Those 3 teams right there. Like if you go to those 3 teams, if you're a rookie quarterback, you're not going to have a good first year. And Sam Darnold's a perfect example of that. So.
Yeah, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Rodgers didn't end up back with Devontae Adams. I think I could see him with the Raiders, man. I think I could see him wearing the silver and black.
He goes from his darkness retreat to literally wearing darkness in the black hole.
Black hole,
yeah,
baby.
So, final thoughts. Talk about Aaron Rodgers a bit here. Do we all feel comfortable if we were to trade for him? What would signal to you as a Titan fan if we did trade for Aaron Rodgers? And I'll start with you, MJ, on that one.
It would signal desperation. It'd signal that we don't really have a plan. Apparently, Rodgers is going to go for a first and more. And at this point, I don't think you can do that. I think Rodgers, you're talking 2 years max. This guy has a foot out of the door at this point. The only team, to me, in the league that should even be considering this is the Jets. I could legitimately see the Jets going to I don't know if they'd win, but going to the Super Bowl. The Raiders are not going to do it next year. Wow, they could be interesting, and they're not going to, go all the way. Outside of that, to trade for Rodgers, you have to say we have a legitimate shot at winning the Super Bowl. Otherwise, you're trading a potential franchise stalwart for 2 years of Rodgers. It's crazy, and he's going to bring the drama. He gives less and less of a damn lately. I mean, he just doesn't care about people talking about him, about what his teammates think about him, about what the front office cares about him. He's a headache. He's a complete and total headache. He's lost it. I don't even know if he ever had it. I don't know. We'll see who ends up dating next because, every year he has a different girl too. But yeah, I have no interest in Aaron Rodgers at this point.
I'll say that it's a necessary headache if we do trade for him because he's not going to put up crap from offensive play calling with Tim Kelly or Mike Vrabel's play calling style. So if Aaron Rodgers comes in, he's going to be the one to have a stamp of some sort on the offense that's going to be put on the field in terms of play calling. So he's not going to give That's the thing about us rumored to trade for Aaron Rodgers last year. Yeah. After the playoff loss against the Bengals, could we trade for Aaron Rodgers last year? Amidst of Todd Downing, he would have not cared about Todd Downing in terms of authority figure because he's like, no, you stink, and here's the plays I'm going to run, and watch this. And so, I think similar thing's going to happen with Tim Kelly and Mike Vrabel, and it seems like Mike Vrabel and Aaron Rodgers are best friends. It seems like, at least that's the impression that I get. Again, this offseason can go many different. We can run it back like we did this past year. We could draft a quarterback. We could trade up. We can, God forbid, we get Anthony Richardson from Florida. I do not want him as my quarterback. Hey, who knows? Maybe he's the next Lamar Jackson of this. He's the Lamar Jackson of this draft. Who knows? Who knows? But I don't trust Anthony Richardson if we were to draft him. Aaron Rodgers, though. Ultimately, I would not be surprised, nor would I be shocked I would not be against the idea. It would give a new flavor to where predictability is not an issue if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback because you don't know as a defensive head, a defensive player, is Derrick Henry getting this ball? Is Aaron Rodgers going to audible out this play? Is he going to catch us when we're doing substitutions and then he's going to throw for a touchdown to Traylon Burks or Kyle Phillips or whoever our wide receivers are? Yeah. You got the possibility in your pocket with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, which in the AFC South, that's good enough for you to win the division, and then all you need is a good few breaks, and then you're back to the AFC Championship game for the first time since 2019.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's if we get Aaron Rodgers, that's going to be proof that just is going to show the hand for the timeline that we're on. Because it's if we get Aaron Rodgers, we just need to expect when he's gone, Derrick Henry will be gone for real. And then from there, it'll be rebuild. And again, I think it's part of the
So you think Derrick Henry's going to be gone if Aaron Rodgers comes to town?
No, I'm saying I think if we get Aaron Rodgers, Derrick Henry's staying. When Aaron Rodgers moves on, we're moving on from Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I think those two are about a similar timeline when it comes to their age and their positions. And I think if we go and get a big name quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, we're saying we're trying to just reopen the window. That's all we're trying to do is reopen the Super Bowl window. If we go get a big name quarterback like Aaron Rodgers.
All right, gentlemen. Any last thoughts you want to talk about with the Titans before we sign off, Aaron?
I just want to say, man, the Titans. I'm still riding for you guys. I was born and raised a Titans fan. Just don't disappoint me. Make the right moves. I'm believing in our new GM, Vrabel. I like you as a coach, man. I just need to see they turn the ship around, okay? And pay Jeffrey Simmons. Pay the man.
MJ?
Yeah, no, it's a big offseason ahead, very crucial offseason as we kind of pivot with this new GM. I did not see this happening. I did not see John Robertson being fired. That was a scenario that to me was not even possible heading into last season, but here we are. It's a transitionary phase. We'll see how it goes, but let's start assembling some pieces and get this ship righted and get it corrected.
I think if ultimately you are one left tackle away and you are a one decent wide receiver weapon away from good quarterback play to us being back in the playoffs easily next year, because if this defense performs as it did the last 2 years and the offense just improves by a touchdown or two, we're winning more than 7 games for sure this year. That's for darn sure. And we have the second place schedule. So we got an easier schedule than the Jacksonville Jaguars. So no worry about the Chiefs. Are we playing the Chiefs this year? Or maybe we didn't get away from that after all. I don't know if we're playing the AFC West. We're playing a top-tier team that we couldn't get away from with our standings. I want to say that's the AFC North. I can't think of it right now.
We played the AFC West last year, so we're definitely not facing them this year.
Okay, so I think it's the AFC North this year that we're playing. So we're not going to get away from Cincinnati. So we're going to be facing them inevitably again. So we're going to get away from the Chiefs. We're going to get away from the Bills. So, I mean, I guess that helps us because the second place teams in those divisions were the Chargers and the Dolphins. And Dolphins, who knows what's going to happen with Tua and his health. And the Chargers, they still have Brandon Staley as their head coach. So who knows what's gonna happen from there. So all right, everybody. That was our lasting thoughts on this episode of Cast It to the King. And before we go, I'm just gonna have each of y'all just say individually where can they find you online. I'll start with you and Aaron.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Aaron. I think it's .Alston, ALSTON.
All right.
You can find my YouTube channel, Sports Fan Entertainment, youtube.com/@SportsFanEntertainment. Also follow me on Twitter @TheMJTake.
All right, and my name is Joshua Mickle. You can find me on this channel, Kick It to the King Productions. And with that, with episode 12 in the books, I'm Joshua Mickle. This is Aaron Alston, and this is MJ. Sign off.